Lots of people were taught to repress or suppress their emotions, deny their feelings. You said it earlier. We'll say things like, suck it up, don't be angry, don't be sad. You shouldn't feel that way. But God made us to feel. You know, recovery of life is all about getting back to what God made us to be. And God made us to feel. He gave us an emotional heart for purposes. Welcome to episode 6 of the Jesus in a Tragic World podcast with Greg Faulls. This is Greg Faulls here, and I hope that our time with each other in the coming moments will help you find fuller life in a relationship with God, yourself, and others. I'm joined by JP Kwok today as we explore a 5th step on our path of recovery. So far, we've talked about admitting our powerlessness, trusting God's care, embracing our identity as human beings, not just human doings. And last time we discussed caring for ourselves in partnership with God's love for us. Today, we're taking a bold step on the recovery path. The step is this: I feel my feelings and don't push them away. Ever been told emotions are the enemy? What if they're actually a lifeline? Join us today as we explore how properly embracing your emotional feelings can lead to healing, connection, and deeper life with God. Let's get started. Well, JP, glad you're here.
Thank you, Pastor Greg. I hope you're doing well today.
I'm doing good. We're packing in another episode here today, and
we're ready to talk about our feelings.
Yes. I think this can be an awkward type of subject. We are talking about feelings today. Is something that a lot of people have a hard time discussing. I certainly did in my past, and so yeah.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what. Why don't you kick it off today?
Well, why don't we start by just talking about what this step is?
Okay.
The step, we've been talking about steps on the path of recovery, recovering of life, being able to get to a place where we're really living life to the full and not shutting down things in our life that enable us to really receive all that God has. We talked a lot about receiving last episode.
It's really good, by the way. I appreciate it. I hope people go back and watch it.
I do too. It's so fundamental to everything else that we're doing today and in the next coming weeks. When it comes to the emotional side of our life, learning how to fully access that part of us is a really important part in being someone who can really receive all the things God has for us in life. Our feelings are, there are a lot of things, but one of the things they are is they serve as a certain kind of receptor to life. And so here's the step that we want people to begin to take. And let me be real clear about my own limits in this. The journey of really understanding one's emotional side of life in the way that we're talking about now is somewhat new to me. I've been doing a lot of work, to some measure daily work in this area for the last 3 years. And 3 years may sound like a long time, but when you compare it to my 57 years, this is a new journey I've been on about exploring the emotional components of my being, the emotional components that God designed me and you, everybody, to have, and for a purpose, to live life to the full, as Jesus speaks of in John 10:10. But what we're talking about today is, in order to have steps of recovery, I feel my feelings, I don't push them away. In other words, I'm going to value my feelings, not see them as the enemy, but to see them as a friend that enables me to live life more fully. Now, one of the things that needs to be said first, because when people hear we're going to talk about feelings, I mean, think about the things that we usually think about. We think about, are you just going to follow your feelings, right? And just live by your feelings.
Follow your heart.
Right, yeah, follow your heart. And of course, as a Christian, people will quote, well, the heart is deceitful, right, from the Bible. And sin has compromised our heart. muddled that up. And so we can't always trust our heart. But yet our heart needs to be listened to. And our heart, we'll talk about this more in the weeks to come, but our heart really is a working together of the emotional component of our life, a working together of our feelings, our needs, our hopes, our desires, our longings, all of that is inside of us. And all of us have a lot of that inside of us. That is what the Bible's referring to when it refers to heart. Mm-hmm. And our feelings are a part of that. And you see the Bible talks about heart all the time. The Bible talks about heart more than it talks about mind. Mm. But nonetheless, mind and heart go hand in hand. They work together. We're emotional and rational beings. Many of us have been taught that feelings are the problem and they need to be avoided.
Mm-hmm. Like suck it up, pull yourself up with your own bootstraps.
Right.
Rub some dirt on it.
Yes,
that's kind of. I'm Gen X. That's how we kind of grew up.
Yeah, exactly. Or you shouldn't be sad.
Yeah.
Who says you shouldn't be sad? You are sad.
Or just don't be sad.
Yeah, don't be sad. Mm-hmm. How do I turn that off? Because it's like a feeling inside me. Now, we sometimes will think we're turning it off when we're just kind of, we put it into a position of denial. Okay, I'm not sad. So we'll say I'm not sad. But in our body, we're feeling sadness. Mm-hmm. Why and I don't have time to flesh this out, nor am I an expert in this. But our feelings are usually felt distinctly in our bodies in certain ways. I've been in settings where people have said, well, what are you feeling right now? I might identify that feeling. They say, where in your body are you feeling sensations about that? And at first I had a very difficult time with that. But then over time, I feel hurt or I feel guilt or I feel sadness. And many times there are sensations that we feel in our body. And because our emotional system is all a part of our nervous system and plays a function in our humanity for our survival and our connectivity and our relationships. God made these integrated systems in our bodies to help us connect and live well our life with God, others, and ourselves. And where a lot of times we're taught, you shouldn't feel things or stop feeling that, but that idea is sick. Feelings are how we learn about ourselves. It's how we come to know more fully what's going on in our life and particularly our life and how it's relating to the world at the moment. Our feelings are important in discerning, loving, connecting, grieving, discovering, but sure, you also have to reason and think, right? Mm-hmm. You don't want to only let your feelings control you. I mean, we can imagine, most of us can imagine that going. Like we could be sad, but we don't want to be sad and maybe even we can be sad and it's a good thing to say, I'm going to care for myself. I'm going to lay in bed for a little while, or I'm going to sit on the couch and just be quiet, or I'm going to pull the blinds. But you don't want to do that day in and day out. No. You're going to get more and more. You're not going to. Sadness should lead to something. Mm-hmm. Sadness should lead to some kind of connection or realization. But we can. So we're not just looking to follow our feelings without reason, without rational. The Bible. But at the same time, we don't want to ignore the feelings, right?
Right.
The Bible teaches in Proverbs 4, verse 23, keep your heart with all vigilance. Guard your heart, some translations say. For from it flow the springs of life. And part of our heart, a big part of the function of our heart is the emotional system of our life. Most emotions are uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. You think about emotions. Like I would argue that here's a list of some emotions: hurt, fear, anger, sadness, guilt, shame, loneliness, if I didn't mention that before. and gladness. Well, I just mentioned a list. Probably most people that heard that went, well, I like gladness, but all the rest of those make me uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And so our emotions can feel uncomfortable, but none of them are bad emotions. Mm-hmm. They're all important to us living fully. And let me just say this, anybody that's listening to this that goes, I'm kind of a calf at a new gate. I'm a little confused. Listen throughout the episode, maybe even listen to it again. There's a resource that we're going to talk about that we're going to encourage you to get a little bit later in the episode. But if you're a little clueless, that's okay. I was too, but it may be an indicator that you have this world that you could learn about your life that could help you connect with God, others, and yourself in a much more experiential, knowing, and endurance-rich way.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to this. So you mentioned that we're rational beings and we're emotional beings. A lot of people think, well, if I don't feel comfortable with my emotions, then I know I can lean on my rational side. Mm-hmm. But that's not altogether the best way to live your life. You're going to ignore your feelings, and feelings can't really be ignored. They can just be suppressed, right? They're going to come back in some kind of manifest way. So why is that important to figure out that balance, and how do you do that?
A great way to do that to answer that question would be maybe to flesh it out with a feeling. Okay. For instance, let's look at it this way. Feelings are a bit like your kids. You don't want them driving the car, but you don't want to stuff them in the trunk either, right? And that's a good illustration for the dynamic between the emotion and following your emotion, and the importance of reason in discerning what you need to do in the context of the emotion. Let me give you an example. For instance, we'll discuss this a little bit more later, but anger is a feeling. It's a feeling. It's an important one that God gave us. I mean, like, it's important to survival. It's important to getting things done. It's important to a lot of things. The Bible, anger in itself, a lot of Christians say, well, you shouldn't be angry. Anger is a sin, right? Yeah. Bible never teaches anger is a sin. The Bible teaches, do not sin in your anger. In other words, you're going to have this emotion. The emotion is not bad. It's an important one God gave you the capacity for, but what you do with it, that determines righteous outcomes, unrighteous outcomes. And so, and Jesus got angry. He was righteous in his anger. He acted righteously, justly, with his anger. So anger's an emotion. It's not something wrong, but a lot of times Christians will say that it is and say things like, oh, you shouldn't be angry. Well, it's a feeling that can save our life, though, and protect others and move us to do great and godly works. Many a person has been saved because someone was like, not on my watch. I'm going to go save them, or you're not going to hurt me anymore. Not on my watch. I'm going to set a healthy boundary, right? Or hey, there's this great project and this great creative endeavor that's in front of us, and the world ought to have it. And there's this anger inside. It's not a dark thing. It's just this passion for, by golly, this world's going to have it, and I'm going to work to design it and make it so.
You're often sharing God's passion for something when he ignites that holy type of anger inside.
Yeah. And unfortunately, a lot of people even hearing what we're saying here, and they're going, why are you saying that in terms of anger? Like that, because they have been given this stigma with that word anger, and just think that anger is always something that's hurtful. And it's not. It's that energy that's there. The feeling of anger is not the problem. God made us capable of feeling that feeling for good reasons, but what we think to do with that can lead that feeling to either motivate us or to bring hurt in our lives. So,
yeah, absolutely. But so many people have learned to suppress their feelings. And why is that so harmful?
That's a great question. Lots of people were taught to repress or suppress their emotions, deny their feelings. You said it earlier. We'll say things like, suck it up, don't be angry, don't be sad. You shouldn't feel that way. But God made us to feel. You know, recovery of life is all about getting back to what God made us to be. And God made us to feel. He gave us an emotional heart for purposes. In the same way that, we use the word feelings also a lot of times for things that we feel, sensations we experience. We have this whole nervous system. Nervous system goes into our muscles, our bones. You know, if you break those things or bruise those things, it hurts, right? It cries out. In our skin, we have all kinds of nerve endings, right? That, we can feel something. Oh, that's nice. It's smooth. Oh, that's soft. Ooh, that stings. And can you imagine what it would be like if there was this master switch that you could push to turn off all of your sensations, your nerve-ending sensations in your skin?
Yeah.
Can you imagine how much of your light, you wouldn't feel a breeze, you wouldn't feel the warmth of the sun, you'd see it, but you wouldn't feel it. You wouldn't feel a hot stove. And so you might set your hand on fire and burn it off. I mean, there's all kinds of horrible results that could come by shutting down that system of sensation, feelings in that sensation sense. Well, we're also given emotions, and those emotions are receptors, and more than that, they're indicators, they're evaluators of what's going on, certainly in our response to our world. And if you shut those off, you're losing a whole part of how you experience your life. We are rational beings, but we're more emotional than we are rational. Like most of our decisions, they may have rational argument to them. But most of them have emotional motive to them. I don't want to feel bad, right? Or I don't want to feel hurt, or I don't want to. So we're getting to a solution, or we're getting to something that I need out of this. Yeah. And usually because we're blind to it, we think feelings are somehow in the way because they're uncomfortable, or we think they're going to stop us, when really they need to be informing us. They need to be alerting us. They're a part of our eyes, our ears,
It's like a check engine light. Your car might be able to function, but that light's blinking. You can stick a piece of electrical tape on top of it, but it doesn't make the indicator go away.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned that feelings help us learn about ourselves. That's kind of where we are right now. You're saying that they're indicators. They're out there. They're giving you insight as to what's happening internally in your emotions. You might be trying to proceed rationally, but they're welling up and they're trying to inform you. How exactly can emotions serve you well, and how do you interact with them? Perfect question.
Well, identifying your feelings can help you understand what might be going on in and around you, particularly when I say around you in terms of how you are experiencing the world. It can also help you discern what you might be needing in any given moment. Okay. For instance, let me give you a real quick example. If I feel lonely, that's a real primary feeling. If I feel lonely, that tells me something about a need in my life. So I need some connection. Now, I may or may not be able to secure that connection right away. But I know, hey, that's me crying out for connection, for a relationship with God, self, and others. There's something I should explore and be open to. And let me say something about this. When you come to understand your emotions, the emotional side of you, it's really good to get, particularly if this is something new to you, it's good to get a good resource that can help you navigate. And there's not a whole lot out there, but there are a few really good sources. And there are all kinds of what I'll call feelings charts and feelings lists out there. There's one that's very popular among a lot of therapists and stuff. It's kind of mad, sad, bad, glad. And then there's like 9 different emotional words under each one of those categories. There's all kinds of things out there. I have chosen to shape my journey on one particular model that an author by the name of Chip Dodd wrote about in his book, Voice of the Heart. I actually have a copy right here. The Voice of the Heart, A Call to Full Living, Discover the Gift of the 8 Feelings. And he discusses what he believes are the 8 primary feelings. I mean, there's thousands of words in languages to describe nuances of feelings, but he argues that there are 8 primary feelings. And others would argue different lists and different words. But I really have found his work to be good and very biblical in its foundations. And so I want to encourage anybody that's on a journey here to consider getting that book. It's by Chip Dodd, D-O-D-D, The Voice of the Heart.
Yeah, it is a good book. Would you mind going through the feelings?
Yeah. Let me first just talk about, he talks about something called the spiritual root system, which is basically understanding your heart, which is emotions and feelings are a part of that, but also longings and needs and hopes and desires, all of that is a part of who we are, is a part of what he calls the spiritual root system. My purpose here today is not to go through all that, but to go in and talk about some of his treatment of this emotional side and these feelings that we want to get back in touch with, because God hardwired them in us in order to experience life to the full. For instance, this is something he says about feelings. He says on page 18, feelings speak the language of the heart. We come out of the womb experiencing life through our feelings. And any of us that have had children and have seen those kids, we know that's true. They are primary to our human experience and awaken us to our hearts. We use feelings to communicate our God-given hunger for relationship. Unless we rediscover our ability to feel deeply and express feelings clearly, we will never find full life. Yeah.
We don't outgrow feelings. That's not the point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. It's interesting that Jesus, and for a lot of reasons, I'm sure Jesus said this, but maybe also for this reason as well. Jesus talked about how we need to be like a little child to truly receive the kingdom. And like I said, that can mean a lot of things, humility, but being in touch with how we are made, how God made us, and to approach God with all of the elements of how we're made, I do think is in that. Because kids, for instance, I spent the weekend with my grandson, and my grandson and we went hiking together, and we went out for ice cream together, and every once in a while he'd have an emotion. And he knows how to say it, too. And he'd have an emotion, and I would say, well, it's okay for you to feel that way.
Yeah.
And how about we attend to this need, and then we'll move on, right? And he doesn't hide his emotions. He doesn't squelch his emotions. He doesn't stuff his emotions. He feels it. We all get to see it, and then we get to, he gets to make some choices with that.
Yeah. One of my favorite illustrations that Chip uses in that book is talking about a baby crying because it's hungry.
Yes.
I think that's just so poignant and applicable, because you would never blame a baby for crying for being hungry.
Right.
What else is it going to do?
Yeah.
It's powerless to do anything else.
So why should we blame someone in our family for being sad just because we're uncomfortable that they're sad?
Yeah.
It's like they're sad.
Yeah.
Now, if they're making poor decisions that just drive them deeper into depression, and they're not getting help, and they're being self-destructive, well, sure, there's something to protest, right? And intervene on. But if they're just feeling sad, well, they didn't get to choose that. They're feeling sad. There's something to be done about that, or attended to, because they're feeling sad.
Yeah.
We don't need to shame them for it. No. We don't need to allow others to shame us for that feeling.
But babies mature, and they don't always have to cry when they're hungry, but they will feel shame in different ways that are positive when they have a need that's new that can't be met by themselves.
Yeah.
So,
but why do they not cry as much? Well, because now they can talk.
Right.
Or now they can go get it and put it in their mouth, right? They've those things have matured.
Yeah.
And so the feeling of emotion is something that is, is still there, but it has a different, it's attended to differently.
Yeah.
Right. Well, here's what he calls the 8 primary feelings.
Mm-hmm.
He says there are 8 primary feelings, and anybody could try to argue with those. But like I said, I've found that adhering to these in describing my emotional realities is very helpful. And we can have multiple of these feelings at one time. We can even experiencing all of them at the same time. But here, hurt, lonely, sad, anger, fear, shame, guilt, glad. He introduces it on page 37. And we can go through that here in a second, but there's something I want to say, and I've already mentioned it earlier in our podcast, is that a lot of times we'll listen to that list and there's only one that sounds good.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Glad.
Yeah.
And I've heard a lot of people in venues that I've been in say, oh, I want to avoid the 7 bad ones and I want to experience all the time the one good one. And what I'm going to say is that's ridiculous. It's not the way you were made. You were made with all of them. And you can't even have gladness if you can't pass through things like sadness. Because you can't even experience gladness usually alone. Usually with gladness, there's still an element of sadness because you know what you're glad about right now is probably transitory.
Right.
And it's not going to last forever. And you're already grieving the fact that this better enjoy this now because tomorrow there might be something that I'm hurt, lonely, sad, sad about. And, but we'll think that there's only one positive emotion. Well, no, they're all positive because they're all useful. Now, all of them can also lead to things that are impaired. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But let me illustrate. Let me read something that he says about feelings as about all the feelings being positive, the potential of being positive. He says, why is only one feeling positive? He said, actually, each feeling is positive because of where it can lead. There was a time when I thought and had even been tutored to believe, he writes, that feelings are neither good nor bad, they just are. That is not true. All 8 feelings are good. However, when I behave irresponsibly with my feelings, which you can do, what I do with those feelings can certainly be evaluated. It's my behavior or planned behavior that is good or bad. Feelings themselves are good. Each feeling is a gift from God. It's a responsibility is something that he often teaches. In other words, I'm response-able. God gave me an ability to respond to my world with a feeling.
Yeah.
Each feeling has its own specific purpose in helping us live life fully. Hurt can lead to healing. Loneliness moves us to intimacy. Sadness expresses value and honor. Anger hungers for life. Fear awakens us to danger and begins wisdom. Shame maintains humility and mercy. Guilt brings forgiveness, or can lead us to that. Gladness proves hope of the heart to be true. In other words, we really can experience life and experience gladness. And
so all of those emotions have powerful benefits to them.
Yeah.
And they're all part of the Imago Dei. They're part of God's
the
shaping
image
us.
of God, right.
Yeah, so that we can interact with him in the way that he's created us.
Yeah.
So we're going to be sad, and we can interact with God in that sadness. The Psalms gives us that opportunity.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to be angry.
Lamentations.
Lamentations. Absolutely.
Like sadness. There's going to be a funeral that I'm going to conduct this week, and of somebody that we in our church all love, and somebody that passed away. And so when I conduct that, we're going to do something very important and beautiful. We're going to be sad together, which means we're going to say, this person was valuable. And, so what we're going to do, we're going to rediscover and maybe appreciate all the more how important that person was and what a gift they were to us. Which means we're going to come away from that collective sad memorial service actually richer, deeper people. but we'll walk together through the uncomfortable experience of sadness and become richer because of it.
Yeah. It's powerful. It is a gift.
Well, I'm gonna talk just briefly about these 8 feelings per the Chip Dodd book, A Voice of the Heart. On page 56 and 57, he talks about the gift of feelings. He has a gift of feelings chart, and on that, and anybody that decides to get this book, and I do hope that you would, and start your journey in terms of discovering this part of your life, these 8 feelings and their role. When you see this chart, you'll see that the chart has a few columns. It has the feelings, the 8 feelings, and then it has what those feelings can lead to if the way you handle those feelings are impaired. In other words, you poorly handle those feelings. And then what can happen if you rightly handle those feelings? And let me talk for just a moment about what Chip Dodd says about how you handle those feelings in a way that can lead to the gift of them. He talks about this formula: willingness plus patience plus work plus time equals gift. Anybody gets that book, they can review that. But willingness, we have to have the willingness to let the feelings be experienced, the willingness to open up our heart to this part of us. And that can be a scary thing, particularly if we've been brought up to see his feelings as impediments or something worse. And then it takes patience. When you're feeling lonely, and it's going to take patience to sit in that loneliness until you can do the work that needs to happen to maybe connect in a way that you're not as lonely. It's going to take patience when you're hurt. You're probably, when you're hurt, something happened. And there's going to be some things that have to happen to resolve that, for hurt to turn to healing. And so to be patient in that hurt. See, some people aren't patient, so they find themselves into addiction. Like we get hurt all the time in this life. Jesus in a tragic world, right? We're in a tragic world. We're going to experience that all the time. Well, if we're going to have that experience of hurt, and then we're going to go to a bottle of liquor or snort a line of cocaine or take a prescription medicine.
Or just binge watch Netflix.
Scroll through YouTube, all of this kind of thing, or get ourselves engaged in some kind of sexual sin or something. All we're trying to do is escape the feeling. But if we'll have the patience, and the biblical word for patience, I love the way the King James Version translates it. Patience is translated long suffering. You're willing to suffer well in something that's uncomfortable. That's what patience is. When you're waiting for something you want, right? There's some suffering in that. And when you're waiting for something you want, you allow it, you give it time. And that takes faith too, doesn't it?
It does.
Faith that, if I'm patient in this feeling of hurt, rather than going and trying to cover over it with drunkenness or something like that, or anything to medicate, if I'm willing to be patient, suffer long in it to get to the healing. Whereas if I'm just going to medicate it, I'm probably not going to heal. In most situations, I'm not going to heal. It's not going to get better. I'm just going to stuff it. I'm going to push it off to the side.
That feeling has no benefit to you.
Yes. You might get relief, but it's only an escape. It's still there. It's still there. And then there has to be work. In other words, you're probably going to be in that emotion a little confused. You're going to maybe need some wisdom from others. You're going to need some help. You're going to need to, apply that patience in day-to-day work. Remind yourself of the good news of the gospel or whatever to get through that time. And then it takes time. Just everything takes time. Some measure to time does not heal all wounds, but time's important in the process of healing wounds, right? And so when you have willingness plus patience plus work plus time, it can bring you to the gift. But to do that, you have to be open to life on life's terms. And to do that, you've got to be willing to be patient. So let me go through some of these just very quickly. If you have the emotion of hurt, if you handle that poorly in an unhealthy way, it can lead to the impairment of resentment. I've been hurt. I'm become resentful. You can grow a bitter root, right? Mm-hmm. Most of us know, we know people that have done this. But if we'll do the willingness, patient work, and time, it can lead to healing and courage. If I feel lonely, well, if I operate in a way that's impaired, that can lead to apathy. Well, whatever. Doesn't matter. I'm always going to be alone. Or I can go and work my way to intimacy. How can I connect with God, self, and others? How can I grow in my relationships? How can I connect better with people? If I feel sad, an impaired way of dealing with that will lead to self-pity. Oh, woe's me. It always happens to me. Right? But if I do the healthy path, it can lead to acceptance. Okay, I lost that. I can remember when I was young in my 20s, my parents a few years before had gotten a divorce. That really hurt me. I was really sad about that and faced it all the time. There's so many things. It just tore into me. And then there was a time when I finally went, okay, I accept it. I accept this loss. It is what it is. And that didn't mean I liked it. Didn't mean I didn't still feel certain feelings about it. But there was this sense of acceptance and a certain peace, serenity that I felt inside me because of that. Anger, we already talked about that earlier in the podcast. That can lead, if it's impaired, it can lead to pride and depression. If it's done in a healthy way, it can be passion to get all kinds of things done. Well, I've even had people say to me in recovery circles, hey, I think I need to stir up some anger in me. And they didn't mean go and pick a fight in a bar, right? They meant, I need to
care about something.
Yeah, to care. Right. Yeah. To care about something that isn't where it needs to be right now.
Yeah.
And to get it there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then another one is fear. That's a feeling. Oh, that's a feeling. I was drunk on fear for years, just always gripped with fear. If it's impaired, it can lead to anxiety. You're just afraid of everything. Every time your phone rings, you get these like electrical shocks through your body, right? Every time someone calls you or you hear from a certain person, you're afraid, right? But if you do the work, it can lead to wisdom and faith. Wisdom and faith. Because fear, like God gave you fear. Yeah. There's a lot of Christians that go, faith over fear, and they think the fear doesn't have a function. Fear has a tremendous function.
Well, the beginning of wisdom is fearing the Lord. Excellent. Yeah. Proverbs 1:7, right? And if we don't have fear, well, we're going to be dead really fast, right? Yes. We're going to do foolish things and we're going to get hurt. So wisdom is in fear. Like we can learn wisdom with fear, but also faith, because, there's sometimes when I'm afraid, but I need to move forward. David faced Goliath. Goliath was bigger than David. David had faith that God would take care of that which, he'd fill the gap. And so he chose faith. But that doesn't mean it wasn't a fearful situation. And so it's okay to feel fear. It's okay to feel fear. It's not good to allow fear to so grip you that it becomes anxiety that's perpetual. But if fear can lead you to wisdom, discernment, and faith, make decisions about, I'm going to do this, but I'm not going to do that because it wouldn't be wise, and I got reasons to be afraid of that. But hey, there's some things that, I'm willing to take a risk, and I'm going to have the faith. And then there's shame. Shame, and he defines shame. Shame can be both good and bad. Shame can be toxic or not toxic. And shame is that awareness that we're human, that we can fail at things, that we're limited, and that we have need. But if it's led to impairment, it can become toxic shame and contempt. If it leads to the gift, it leads to humility
It's like, yeah, I can't do that real well. I can do this real well, but I can't do that real well. I need help. I need others, or, I failed you, I forgot your name again. I'm so sorry. I feel some shame in there because I've been told your name 7 times and I still haven't learned it yet, and I'm feeling some shame, And then there's guilt. Guilt, if it's impaired, it can lead to toxic shame and shamelessness. Like toxic shame could be, maybe I feel guilty about things I didn't do or that somebody else did, wants me to feel bad about it. I'm the scapegoat, right? That's toxic. That's bad. A lot of people feel guilt like that, and they don't need to be relieved of their guilt. They need to be told, you're not guilty, right? And then there's others that are like, okay, I feel guilt. And the way I'm going to deal with it is I'm just going to be shameless. It's too late now. I'm already marred. So I'll do whatever. I'll disobey God. I'll pervert my life, But guilt is good when you consider the fact that when I feel guilty, if there is something that is amiss in me, because of our great God and our Savior, Jesus Christ, that can lead me to freedom and forgiveness, to go, I'm going to reach out. I'm guilty. I need redemption and reach out for Jesus. And then glad if it's pursued in a way that's impaired, it can lead to sensuous or sensual pleasure that doesn't have heart to it. But Chip Dodd says that if it's the gift, it's joy with sadness. And like I said earlier, that sadness is that sense of this is only temporary. And then, I'm going to have other challenges and everything else that I can't have that gladness without some of these other feelings. And so there's that sadness that is present.
Yeah, so there's this expectation that we have sometimes that, like you said at the very beginning, where we can escape all these other negative emotions. What you're telling us is that these emotions are 100% a part of every single second of our life. We're going to experience one of them, multiple, and we need to learn how to receive them,
right,
and know how to work with them. I really appreciate you walking us through Chip Dodd's. There's all the positive sides to emotions.
Right.
Of course, you're recommending people look into this. They can find this book. We can make the information available to them.
Yeah,
and they should dive in and learn as much as they possibly can. But what you're saying today here is that these emotions are going to help you live more fully.
Right.
You're going to be more in tune with God, connected with Him, and you're going to be able to connect with other people. But what else will these emotions help us do?
Give you a emotional endurance to accept life on life's terms.
What does that mean?
Well, we don't dictate all the terms of our lives, do we?
Yeah.
If we did, we'd probably be able to craft our life in the way we want, and we wouldn't feel the uncomfortable emotions and all that kind of thing.
Right.
But life is difficult and often tragic, and even good things have stress to it, right? Like we in our ministry here, there's a lot of times things are going really, really well. Everything's going well, but it's still stressful, right?
Sure. There's things to attend to, things to do, tasks.
And those things can wear you out.
Deadlines.
And create fear and all that. But if you are building emotional endurance, not by stuffing your emotions and ignoring them, but by choosing not to be afraid of them, but to embrace them and to allow them to lead you to the gift, then you can learn to live on life's terms better and more fully and endure. And when you can endure, then you become less and less prone to addictive, compulsive things that we use to escape. A lot of addictive sins can be avoided when we grow in our emotional capacity.
Yeah, well, we really want to point this out because when we ask this question, people are like, well, that's a very reasonable question to ask, but it's important to remember what you just said. If you do not learn how to deal with these emotions and to accept life on life's terms, then you are going to self-medicate in some kind of way.
Right.
I mean, the odds are really almost 100%.
Nearly 100%.
There,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay.
And the only reason why we're saying nearly is because we can't be sure that we're
Yeah.
being fair to everybody. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so, I mean, this is something that you've seen pastorally, you're counseling with people, you've seen in your own life.
My own life. Yep.
Your own life. So this is your hope for people, right? I mean, this is one of the primary reasons why you're starting this particular.
Well, that people would fully discover themselves that God made, the self that God made, so that they'd be able to traverse this tragic world. That's not always bad, but this tragic world, well, in a way that follows the ways of Jesus and fully lives the life of a disciple and anticipates the longings of heaven in a rich and wonderful way. Mm-hmm. To do that, one thing we mentioned the author Chip Dodd in that book. One of the things that he says there is, as a kind of a rule of life, is there's 3 things that you're encouraged to do. Number 1, feel your feelings because they got purpose, right? Lead to gifts. Number 2, tell the truth about them. Don't stop lying about them. Stop trying to stuff them, trying to deny them. And because of that, you're going to start telling the truth about yourself, about where you are, what's going on in your life. And then 3rd, trust God with the process. Trust that God is going to help lead you in that. And that he'll guide you in how to navigate those things.
But that's a big part of it because we don't have power over all of our circumstances.
No,
so when you experience a lot of these roadblocks, someone's going to stand in the way, or at least you're going to feel like someone's standing in the way of you being able to deal with these emotions.
Yeah.
And so learning how to listen to them and to get to the gifts part really doesn't have as much to do with the obstacle.
Right.
Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And
because that's where you find faith and that's where you begin to worship and all those things. Well, tell us, how has learning about how to process these emotions and learning how to receive the gifts from them, how has this impacted your personal life?
In many ways, it saved my life in the sense that I was able to come and finally go, oh, there's this whole part of me I was ignoring. It also gave me endurance. Because I had some compulsions, work compulsions, some control compulsions that just that I used to try to just run roughshod over my needs and feelings. And when I finally started to say, okay, I'll feel my feelings, well, then I started letting go of some of those things or some measure of them to be able to really actually experience my life in the body and mind and soul that God gave me. Well, also in knowing your feelings and emotions, you have something to present to actually be able to share with others. For instance, if I'm sad and I come to somebody and we're talking and I say, I'm sad, they can't argue with my emotion really.
Right.
And they just got to know something about me. And there can be a connection in there. If you have two brothers, that want to be close, or two sisters, or sister and brother, or a husband or wife, and if two people are able to share where they are emotionally, then immediately you have an insight into their life. Because I know what sad is. You know what sad is. If I say I'm sad, you go, oh, I think, wow, I connect with that. Like I know what sad is, right? And now you may not know why I'm sad. You might not understand, but I've seen this happen in groups before. You've been in some groups that I've done this before. But I've been in groups. I was in a book study group that I did about 6 months ago, and I had a group of leaders from our community gather together. These are business types. These are the leaders of some of them leaders of hundreds of people, and they I asked them to do what we call a feelings check-in, where I laid these 8 feelings on the floor in a piece of paper, and I said, tell me not why you feel this way. I don't need any backstory. Just what are you feeling right now? And they would say, I feel sad, glad, hurt. And we'd go around the room, and we were all chummy with one another, cracking up, joking with one another and everything. And then when everybody asked one another, what is the state of your heart right now emotionally? And they just use those words. That's it. All of a sudden, the room got quiet. There was this immediate connection we all had with one another. It didn't matter why you were sad or hurt, but I just knew, I knew you. I knew you in that moment. You were known, you were heard because you were able to say what was on the deepest part of you even though I didn't know why you were that. You might not even know why you're sad, but I know where you are. I know where you are. You're in sadness, or you're in that, and I know where you are, and I can keep space with you there, and that's a powerful thing. It's and it lets you be. We've been talking in this series about it's not just about what you do. It's about being. We're a human being. We exist, and we exist the way God made us. And when we recognize that, we honor that, we experience it more.
Yeah.
And I don't know that I can describe it in a way that anybody can experience by my words. They have to enter into the journey. And when they do, they'll little by little, layer by layer, begin to experience it.
Amen. Yeah. Wow. Thank you, Pastor. Anything else?
No, I think that's a good place to stop.
Yeah, I think so.
People are going to want to tune in next time, because we're going to continue to build on this about some things that really need to be done in order for us to love ourselves as God loves us, and to live the way we were created to live.
All right. Well, we want to invite you to like and share this episode. If you would make any type of comments there, that would really help us. It would help that algorithm push out this episode to reach as many people with the gospel message and help them feel their feelings and to be human beings, not human doings. Looking forward to next time, Pastor Greg.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. We'll see you then.
See you then.